That's probably.
All right, it's all you, Doc Dan. Go for it.
There's no questions. Okay. Well, very good. Welcome to what is this about the fourth or fifth? I don't know how many we've done, but I have to say it's an absolutely gorgeous day here in St. George. Weather's in the low 70s. It's beautiful out there. Obviously, if you have to be at Star Guides, this is definitely the best time to be here. So we're going to talk today, and I want to illustrate for you, and I don't really know how far along we will actually get with all of this, but going back to some of those core concepts that we've talked about already, that notion that essentially what we are doing here more than anything else is disruption. That's what we're talking about. We're disrupting whatever the dynamic might be that has generated and is sustaining that developmental vacation with your child. And obviously, they're going to be doing some individual work with that. And as we've talked before, this will be helping them find themselves in a situation such that they will be developing competencies without reaching out and grabbing a dependency and implementing a dependency instead of doing the kinds of things that they need to be doing. So, part of this is realizing that as soon as your child shows up in the program here at Star Guides, they have every intention of turning all of their interactions here into the same interactions that they encountered there with you. And they have every intention, as they possibly can, to turn the nature of their relationships that they have with field staff, with their therapists, and even with the other students who are in the program. They want to turn them into the same kind of relationships that they had with you as parents, with their teachers, with other authority figures, and with the peer group that they had at home. So they will be doing precisely the same kinds of things that they have done in the past in an attempt to move in that direction. And much of what we have to do then is ensure that that does not take place. And the piece that I will be introducing to you today is going to have an awful lot to do with that. This is a great part of the staff training that we provide for the staff that are with your students 24/7. And then we also encourage them to instruct your children in this regard so that your children have an introduction to this. And the primary reason why that would be the case is because we need them to have a mutual language. And it becomes much more efficient and much more precise to be able to use this language in describing the kinds of interactions that are actually taking place. Some of you have likely even received some communication from your child indicating that they might be learning about the ego states, and that's what we're actually going to be talking about today. By the time that we're finished talking about this, however, you will have a much greater understanding of what this is all about than your child will. And a part of that is because ideally, and I don't think I'm taking too much of an assumptive leap. You all have adult brains and will be able to, at this point, analyze this material at a level that will be different from your children who are thinking about this with their adolescent brains, and particularly their adolescent brains that are doing everything that they can do to try and keep them on their own little personal developmental vacation. So, and the other part about it is, as adults, you also have a far greater perspective, and this is one of the messages that we would be constantly hammering home for your children as well. But at any rate, let's start this out. The ego states, and that term, it was originally brought to the public awareness, and just even in terms of the psychological realm of understanding by a guy named Eric Berne. And it was originally developed as a system of psychotherapy, and then it was popularized later on. It's likely that some of you are familiar with a book that came out in the early 60s that is called Games People Play. And Eric Berne was the guy that identified these ego states, as we call them. It's not necessarily a precise notation, but it's one that we commonly share. But the way that we will be describing them also deviates a bit from the way that Eric Berne is describing them and talks about them and uses them as well. But primarily at the foundation, there is this notion that at any one point in time, all of us are operating from one of three different ego states, as we refer. So this is not necessarily considered to be some type of a disorder or a problem. This is not something along the lines of the like a multiple personality disorder, dysphoria, that kind of thing. It's it's more of the idea that each of us will take one of these stances in our interactions with others. Okay. And then it also means that anyone with whom we are interacting is also going to be in one of these three different states, right? So you can immediately understand, hey, we can begin understanding the nature of our interactions by trying to identify which of the three states we may be in and which of the three states that whoever it is that we're interacting with, that they may be in as well. And trying to understand that in terms of how is this facilitating the actual communication that's taking place, or are we locked in some kind of a weird loop or some kind of a weird game that we are playing with each other, and that it's actually preventing our capacity to genuinely communicate with each other. So as we go forward with this, let's start with the parent ego states. So there's two of these that we're going to talk about, but before we go into understanding these things, I want you to see this question, okay? The idea that throughout our children's lifespan, this one particular thing remains absolutely most important. Okay. Starting when our child first comes into our life, and it will continue through the duration of our lives as parents, there is absolutely one most important thing. You can go back, Ricky. We're not quite there yet. there is one thing that parents absolutely must do, and certainly it will be the foundation, and certainly it will be that piece that override or overlaps everything that we do as parents. Okay, and if there were one thing that we could just train on over and over and over and over, it would be this one thing. So the most important thing that a parent can do, and the thing that they absolutely must do, is they must be able to contain any emotional material that the child brings them. Okay? It's imperative that they do this, which means that any emotional material that our child brings us beginning at day one in their lives, they have to see us as someone who has developed to our own position in life as an adult in their world, where our emotional condition is not necessarily connected to theirs, right? That when my child brings me the painful emotional material that they encounter, right? And this starts very, very early for them because, as we will talk about this a little further down the road, there really is not much emotional, I guess, uncomfortable emotional material that a kid can manage at a very early age. And they will be bringing all of this to us as parents. And in our own world and in our own personal history and in our own capacity as human beings, if we have not arrived at a place in our own lives where we can manage our own emotional material in an appropriate, mature way, then when our children bring us their some seemingly overwhelming emotional material, it will feel very punitive to us. Okay, we will not be able to contain it. Is it going to be painful? Yes, absolutely, it will be painful. But our job is to contain that so that our child understands. Okay, there's someone in the world who has achieved a higher level than I have. Okay, that there is another piece up there that I can look to and recognize, this whole idea of adulthood, it's much different from where I am. That there is someone in my life who seems to have some influence in the world, and there is someone in my life that when I bring them painful emotional material, they don't get shook. Okay. And they help me learn how to contain my own emotional material. That's that's what's going on. So when I talk to parents and even when I talk to kids about this, one of the examples that I like to use is I say, okay, here we are. It's the that kind of Hollywood moment, as the background music is playing and the camera is zooming in on this little idyllic scene on some urban street with a tree lined street, and here you are as about a 3-year old, and you're out in front of your house riding on your tricycle or your big wheel or whatever it might be, and again, the Hollywood version would mean that I've got like a balloon tied on my handlebar while I'm riding around, and my puppy is barking at me and those kind of things. And so, as a 3-year old, I get crossed up or whatever it is, and I biff it and I hit the pavement, and I am immediately overwhelmed by a huge flood of sensation. My proprioceptive system is going crazy, and I'm feeling a great rush of pain. I'm feeling a great rush of even maybe somewhat embarrassment, whatever it might be. I might look and see that I am bleeding, perhaps from my knee that I've skinned up, or my elbow, or that I have a big clunk on the side of my head, whatever it might be. All I know as a 3-year old is that whatever it is that I'm experiencing at the moment is incredibly overwhelming to me. And I really don't have much information to understand it beyond that. I have no idea, is this going to be a permanent condition or not? Have I now rendered myself completely defective? Now that I'm damaged, or I see myself being damaged, am I going to be damaged in the sight of others? It's like I have no idea really what this is all about. All I know is I am completely overwhelmed by all of this. Okay. And as a typical 3-year old, I'm still in that stage where my whole sense of well-being is entirely in the hands of the adults in my life. So here I am, completely overwhelmed by all of this, and I go immediately running into the house looking for an adult there. And typically, I will have one adult in mind that I would like to be finding in there, and I come screaming in there, very terrified, and I run in the house. And ideally, then there will be an adult who will come out and say, "Oh, what's going on? What's wrong? Ouch, ouch, ouch. That looks like that really hurts." ouch, that looks like that hurts. And I'm going to, the adult then will, gather a child up and we'll sit and we'll be, we'll be getting a wet rag out and we'll be wiping off the skinned up knees and elbows, and we'll be, putting some antibiotic ointment on it, and all of this time, while this is happening, the adult is holding that child and telling them, "Ouch, ow, yeah, that really looks like that hurts. That really looks like it's painful." It's like, "Ouch," I hate it when stuff like that happens. But we're taking care of it, and at the same time, I am, as an adult, I am wanting to be helping my child learn how to self-soothe. Okay. I'm teaching them how this process goes. And I'm teaching them an incredibly important principle here. And it's that idea that I can biff it and still be okay. Okay. There are going to be those times in my life, and it happens most often for 3-year-olds, right? Because they're constantly biffing it somehow. The parents of 3-year-olds, they might as well just insert a little cassette tape in the side of their head that says, "You're okay, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay." Because 3-year-olds are constantly biffing it one way or another. But it's that part of, like, when I biff it as a little kid, I don't know if I'm okay or not. I am completely dependent upon my parents to give me that information. So, when I'm having a parent that's actually attending to that, recognizing that I'm in pain, but yet at the same time indicating to me that I'm okay, that I will be able to get through this, that it hasn't impacted the nature of our relationship at all. Okay. That's like, okay, yeah, you biffed it. This is what happens to human beings. Yeah, man, it's going to be painful when you biff it. It always is. Okay. But we're going to get through it. I'm going to hold you. I'm going to wipe away the tears, and we'll sit and talk for a little while, whatever it is we got to do until you get feeling better. And then, you can go back out and get on the bike and try it one more time. Okay, that's ideally how that would be. That's a nice illustration of how a parent would contain that painful emotional material that a child would bring to them. In contrast, if we go back with that little scenario and we have that child again, at the moment that he crashes and burns and he gets up and is running and screaming into the house and not sure if he's actually going to live long enough to get into the house, whatever it might be, and the door flies open, and immediately there is a parent there that's saying, "Well, you dummy, what'd you do this time?" Or, "I told you not to do that." Okay. Again, now that would be a nice example of an adult who is not at a place where they can contain whatever that child's emotional material might be, right? That's like they're feeling punished at that point by whatever painful emotional material the child is bringing them. And so the child is not going to have that opportunity to learn, first of all, I can biff it and be okay, right? Which is an incredibly tough concept for us as human beings to learn. Okay, even under the best of circumstances, to arrive in adulthood and have that idea, it's like, okay, I can biff it, even if I'm feeling some pain, if I'm feeling embarrassed, if I'm feeling shamed, whatever it might be, I can work through that painful emotion and still be okay at the same time. That's a really tough concept, all right? But if I have, especially at the time in my life when I'm fully dependent upon the adults in my world to be able to help me learn how to get on the path to doing this, and I'm punished for having painful emotional material, then I'm never going to get that concept. I'm never going to learn that piece or at least in my childhood, I'm not going to be able to learn it. It's going to be more work for me down the road, okay? That idea that I can biff it and still be okay. Which is a hugely important concept. And I'm not learning how to, getting on the path to self-soothing as well, of learning how I can do what I need to do to calm myself. That I may be feeling and experiencing some pain right now, and yeah, it's going to feel overwhelming, but sooner or later, it'll be okay. I'll be able to manage it. I can do this. I'm fine, right? I'm still acceptable to those around me. I'm not defective. I'm just somebody who biffed it. And all human beings who biff it are this way. Anybody that falls off their tricycle gets skinned up. I'm having a human experience. as opposed to, being some type of an aberration of some sort and that no longer acceptable. And if I have parents who are not able to manage their own painful emotional material, then they're not going to help me learn how to do that, right? So it's incredibly important. This is the key concept. If there's just only one concept that we would want to focus on as far as what parenting is all about, it would be this piece exactly. Now, let's talk about this with this in mind. Let's go to the parent ego states, okay? And within the parent ego states, you can go ahead and change the screen, Rick. There we go. We'll talk about the first one, all right? This would be the critical parent. Now, when Byrne actually introduced this concept originally, he describes these kinds of ego states as being transient stances that we take, that we go in and out of them, and we can do it multiple times, and through just even one kind of an interaction. The problem that we have here, especially when we are talking about the developmental vacation, we are talking about fixed states, okay? That the child and typically their parents now are locked in one of these states. It's no longer transient, okay? That we have a pattern, we have a loop that we're stuck in. And when our children are very young, obviously we will have to adopt kind of the critical parent mode with them, because they are unable to make those kinds of objective judgments that they need to make, just even to keep themselves safe. We will have to be the ones that help them understand, really what's socially acceptable, what's a good thing to do, how to keep themselves safe. It's like, well, just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should do it. Those kind of things that, we make those kinds of judgments for them. However, we are not expecting our children to validate us in that situation, especially when they're quite young, right? When we tell our children, no, that's not a good thing to do, that there really is no expectation that they turn around and say, oh, gee, Dad, you are the most a genius individual out there in the world. You're the smartest guy. I'm always going to do exactly what you tell me to do, because without a doubt, you are the smartest guy in the world. No, we don't expect that. And, that's a part of the deal, really. And I hope it's a part of the deal. It's becoming increasingly less of a part of the deal, because I see more and more parents who are bringing children into the world as a means of validating themselves, where they're not really parents, and the children are not really children. They're just accessories, right? But, as a parent, it's not our child's job to validate us. Okay, they didn't ask for that job. And if we are struggling with our own difficulties, if we have a multiplicity of dependencies of our own, then we're going to make our children responsible for those. We will expect our children to validate us. So, and that's how we get locked into these kinds of loops, right? So if I'm locked into the critical parent mode, which, I'm not moving through this, and I'm going out into the world as the critical parent, then I will see myself as the ultimate authority. Okay? And I spend an awful lot of time seeking validation as being the guy who is always correct, as being the guy who knows everything. Okay. And, as it relates to the individual with whom I am interacting, it will mean that I need them to come away from that interaction knowing that I know better than you do what's best for you. Okay. And I'm also going to use you to validate me, because every time you do what I tell you to do, then I am feeling validated at that point. And I need you to validate me. And again, part of the reason why I need you to validate me is because I can't do that for myself. Okay. I haven't advanced to that place in my own development where I am capable of validating myself. And so I'm using you, and it's particularly dangerous if I'm using you, my child, to validate me. Okay? That's very dangerous. And the reason that it's dangerous is my child is going to figure out right away that I can't validate myself and that I have handed over my sense of esteem and my sense of well being and my notion of whether or not I'm a good enough parent. I've handed it to him or her. Okay. And that I can only be okay if they do what it is that I want them to do. So, as the critical parent, I become very, very good at throwing my authority around. I become very, very good at pointing out all of your defects. I become incredibly good at coercing you to do what I want you to do, at intimidating you, at threatening you, those kinds of things. Again, trying to emphasize this notion that ultimately I'm the authority, you're going to do what I tell you to do. And if you don't, it becomes very invalidating to me. And if you don't do what I tell you to do, again, I have only a limited way of engaging with you. And so I will be amplifying whatever it is that I'm trying to do to force you to do whatever it is I want you to do. And we get locked in these just incredibly intense loops, incredibly vitriolic kinds of things. And it becomes very, very discouraging for everybody involved. And the only way that I can feel okay about things is if you're doing what I want you to do. Okay, the critical parent, the ultimate authority figure. I'm always right. That's the critical parent. Now, let's move on to the next one, and this would be the nurturing parent. And with the nurturing parent, again, the underlying piece about this is that I still need you to validate me. Okay, I'm incapable of doing that for myself. If I've adopted this as my sole way of being in the world, then it does mean that I can't validate myself yet. So as the nurturing parent, I'm really not so much interested in being your parent, but I'm kind of like this friend. I want to be seen as this incredibly likable, an influential, understanding friend that you have in your life, right? And I want you to realize that I'm just kind of like you. I'm kind of hip and down. I understand exactly what you're going through. But a part of this is it means that as the nurturing parent, really what I am going to do is I am going to hook you up. Okay. I am going to make sure that you recognize that I am going to be your source of happiness, right? And I'm going to kill myself if I have to try and make sure that you are happy, that you are encountering everything that you need to encounter so that you're going to be happy and okay, right? Now, those of you that have gotten to this point in the Star Guides progression, you'll remember the last question on the first parent narrative. As you've written about this, that last question is that one that says, "Hey, when your child came into your life, what were the hopes, dreams, and aspirations that you had for your child?" Now, I've been reading those parent narratives, for well over, oh gosh, it's got to be about 15 years, close to 15 years was when I first developed that whole narrative idea for wilderness therapy. And, I've sat with a lot of kids out in the wilderness reading to them what their parents have written there. And so, there's been a lot of parents' words coming out of my mouth over the years. And, I have to say that a huge percentage of those, and well into the high 90 percentages of those, would be something along the lines, the parent response to that would be, well, when my child first came into my life, when they were first born, when they were first adopted, whatever it was, I wasn't really so concerned all that much about what his vocation or anything was going to be. but I wanted him to be a good person, and I wanted him to be happy. Okay, and which really, as a parent myself, I want my kids to be happy. I think that would be one of those universal wishes that we have for our children. I don't think I've ever read one of those for the hundreds of parents' narratives that I've seen that had said, "Oh well, I just want them to be miserable like everybody else." No, I've not ever seen any of those. Okay, overwhelmingly, the idea is, I want my child to be happy. Overwhelming. Now, we should probably talk about this a little bit because this applies more to the nurturing parent than it does to anything else. That idea that if I were to sit down with my child and they had the capacity to understand this, if I were telling them, I would say, well, I want you to be happy. I truly want you to be happy as you are walking your life in this world, which means I'm signing you up for a world of pain. Okay. That's really what's happening is that I have come to that understanding and know, and usually, by the time that I get to be an adult, I recognize that if I can't own my own pain, then I will never own my own happiness. Okay. If I have never learned how to be able to manage my own painful emotional material, then I will never, ever, ever, be able to own my own happiness. So, as the nurturing parent, if I insert myself in this place where I am now taking upon myself the happiness of my child, you know, and that I become that dependency over the years for them, that they see me now as the one that is always going to make sure that there's nothing that they have to do that's difficult for them, okay? That they don't ever encounter a situation that might be somewhat anxiety provoking, or that they don't encounter a situation that might be a bit fearful or frightening, or that they don't ever encounter a situation that is hard for them to do, or that they don't ever actually have to deal with consequences of poorly formed decisions. If I'm the one that's always fixing it, if I'm the one that's always intervening, if I'm the one that's making sure that they are okay, then in order for them to feel okay, they will always be expecting something external to them to make it okay, right? And a part of this is that as the nurturing parent, then I am going to be that one that is validated when my child sees me as their source of happiness. And in the process, though, there's a piece that I don't typically think about this because I go through this thinking, well, I'm doing this for your own good. Okay, I got your own, I've got your happiness at mind and everything that I do. I just want you to be happy. That's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm doing this. Okay, because I just want you to be happy. And some of this can even stem out from our own childhood, where we say, well, geez, my parents never did this for me, so I'm going to do this for you. And I hated my parents. I didn't like the way they interacted with me. My parents were neglectful, so I'm going to make sure that never happens for you. On and on and on. But a part of that is that every time that we reach in there and intervene for what righteously is our child's existence, then we're also sending a message to our children that they are incapable, or that they should not actually have to deal with any of their own stuff. Okay? And kids are going to pick up on whatever it is that they can when they begin realizing that I've got somebody in my life that's going to do it for me. If I have somebody in my life that's feeling more anxious about the way that my life is going than I am, that there's somebody in my life that's more concerned about the fact that I am failing my classes than I am, then I'm going to capitalize on that. Absolutely, I'm going to capitalize. And as that nurturing parent, I have this expectation that somehow or another, that if I hook you up enough, then you will feel some notion of obligation to do what I want you to do. Okay? That you will be obligated to do what I need you to do so that I can feel validated as your parent. Okay, as being that parent that's like, yep, see, and if you make me happy, then I will let you be happy as well. So, the nurturing parent is not that parent, is not that ego state that is so much concerned with the coercion piece of this and the intimidation and forcing you to do things. I'm going to argue with you over and over and over and debate and lecture and stuff like that. But the nurturing parent is really good at invoking guilt and shame. And the nurturing parent tends to be the martyr as well, takes upon themselves that role, that idea that's like, after all I've done for you, and this is the thanks I get. Okay, that's kind of that. You'll appreciate me when I'm gone. Those kinds of things. So why do I even try? Those kinds of that's that nurturing parent that somehow I have this expectation that since I have been just this amazingly magnanimous individual, that you will do what I need you to do out of a sense of obligation. And it's only when you fulfill that obligation to me that I somehow now will give you permission to be happy, to let you know that you're okay, right? And I think, most of us as adults can recall the kinds of interactions that we had with adults in our lives when we were little kids were that way, and how dissatisfying it was. And also, especially if we had adults like that in our lives who had some chemical dependencies or something like that going on in their world, that it didn't matter what we did, no matter what we did, they were never really going to be okay, no matter what we did to try and please them. So it becomes, again, this weird loop that we get in, that it doesn't necessarily ever get resolved. And the reason why it doesn't get resolved is because both of the people that would be involved in that interaction are expecting the other to validate them. Okay, that's the nurturing parent, and it's tough. It's a lot easier, if we find ourselves locked in that place of the critical parent. It's a lot easier to walk that one back. Okay, you can walk that one back and say, oh wait, let's do a little bit of a do-over here. Okay, to recover from that one. But the nurturing parent is tougher to walk back. Okay, and it's tougher mainly because there will be some boundary issues that tend to get ignored in that. And there tends to be these kind of under the table types of deals, and there's a lot of little secrets and spider webs and stuff that, spoken and unspoken, that go on as a part of being the nurturing parent. And our child, when they see us as that nurturing parent and have established that loop with us, they have access to much, much more of our own emotional material than they should have access to. Okay, and those are the kind of boundary issues that make it hard to recover from that one. Okay, so those are the two parent ego states. We could actually talk a lot more about both of those, but I think that's probably a good overview for both of them. Now, really, when your child comes into the program, one of the things that they're going to do is immediately attempt to turn our staff and their therapists into either a surrogate parent like you have been, being the ultimate authority figure. And they want them to become defensive and give them lectures, and students will do this all the time. It's inevitable in the first little conversation we have. It's going to come out like, oh well, geez, this place is not going to help me. This program's not going to work. There's not, I already know all this stuff that's in this. That's in the curriculum here, or I've already done this. I've already been in another wellness program. I've already had therapy. no, I already know what it is that I need to do. You're not going to be able to help me. You don't understand me. Okay, you've not been through what I've been through. Nobody's been able to help me up until now. My parents, it's all just a big misunderstanding. It's like whatever I got to do to make it so that you become defensive and start arguing with me. Okay, because I don't really care. I don't care what you tell me. I don't care what kind of a lecture you're going to give me. I don't care what kind of facts you're spouting. I just want to make sure that you are willing to put more energy into this than I am. So I throw that out there to try and get the staff to become defensive about who they are, defensive about who they are as a field staff, defensive about like even just star guides in general, whatever it might be, because I want to hear them now put some energy into defending the program or something like that. It's like, oh, no, 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 you got that all wrong. No, we really care about you. We really are people persons here. And this really is a great program and it's unique. There's nothing else like this. And we've helped hundreds of children. And that I know that it seems kind of dismal right now, but down the road, really, none of that anybody's going to say to them is going to have any kind of an impact other than I am providing data for that child to recognize that I still need them to validate me. Okay. And that as soon as that process begins happening, then the child can kind of kick back and say, okay, I got this. I got this. I don't have to move off of my developmental vacation because now I can stay on developmental vacation and Star Guides is going to sanction it. Okay. I got staff now at Star Guides that's going to interact with me the same way that my parents have, and I've rendered my parents completely ineffective in my life. I have a way of rendering this person ineffective as well. Okay. Or, the other approach would be, I want them to be my friend. Okay. I want them to recognize that they are being less than a human being if they actually expect me to comply with all of the expectations of all the other students, or this is too hard for me, or that again that they don't understand that they are being incredibly cruel. That how can they sleep at night by expecting me to do this, on and on and on and on. Expecting me as the nurturing parent or as the friend to to hook them up somehow. It's like make it better. It's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, you don't really have to do all the requirements. If you just do, half of these requirements for that first phase, I think it'll be okay. Because that it's really this is very very difficult for you. Or you shouldn't have to actually do the Bodro fire because I realize that it's going to be too hard for you. But you know what? I think you would get just as much benefit out of this if you were to write a poem and present it to the group about doing a Bodro fire. That'll be enough for you. That'll be fine because you just can't quite get this, right? Those kinds of things. And again, part of that would be I don't really care whatever somebody is telling me in that indication, other than I now have this data that I'm in control of this nurturing parent or my friend's sense of validation. That they're going to put more energy into this than I am. Okay, that they are more concerned about me, being okay than I am. Right? That's the piece that I need to know, and I'm okay. So if I can turn any of the staff or the therapist, whoever it might be, into either one more of my parents, an extension of my parents, or if I can turn them into my friend, then I'm good. I don't have to worry about treatment. Now, just as another note here, so that you can kind of file this one away, and this would be another one of those things that kids don't really get as a part of their introduction to this, but the parent ego states, that parent part of us, that is all stuff that we have been taught, okay? Our life lessons and our experiences and our history has taught us that. None of us came hardwired with any of that material there already in our brain, okay? And it's a cognitive piece. It's a little map. It's like I tell everyone that we have a little parent tape that plays constantly in our head, okay? And any time that we encounter a novel situation in particular, we listen to that tape, it's the set of shoulds that we have, that tells us, well, it needs to be this way, it should be this way, it should be this way, this is what you should do, And anytime we get into a novel situation, however we engage a novel situation, will be according to whatever our parent tape tells us to do, And it's those weird set of rules as to how it should be. And the other thing about this is that when we encounter situations that feel out of control, we always go back. It's our default mode. We will always go back to whatever that parent tape that we were subjected to. We're going to be doing that same thing, even if it's like I can think of multiple times in my own life. When I will become aware now of my own father's words coming out of my mouth. Okay. And I am speaking them to my own children. And, I have to stop and step back and think, now, wait a minute. I hated it when my dad pulled that crap on me when I was a kid. Why would I think that it's going to be any less of an impact on my own children, right? But we go there because it works, right? We go there because it works according to what worked on us. We know that it works because we saw it work on us, right? And so that's where we go. And we go back to whatever that default parent tape might be. And, part of this, if we're changing any of this, part of it is realizing, hey, wait a minute, I do have that default setting that was taught to me. Okay. It didn't come to hardwired. It was taught to me. I learned the lesson well. I learned that this is how I should be. And, even though I may become somewhat enlightened and everything's going along rosy, under those circumstances that it feels somewhat desperate and out of control, bam, I'm going right back to that. Okay. But the good news about that is like, well, I learned that one well, right? I have the capacity to learn things because I obviously learned this one well. I also have the ability to learn another one. And part of that learning process is realizing, this is me. Okay, here I am in that critical parent mode. That's what I'm doing right now. Okay, I can see what this is. And it has never really been good for me in the past, so it's not going to be good for me this time either. Let me find an alternative. Let me go and move into another way of being. Okay. All right. So if that's the cognitive part of things, then when we move down to the child ego states, okay, let's go down to those. And, there's actually a number of these that we're going to talk about. And as I'm paying attention to the time here a little bit, I realize we're not going to get through all of these. And the way that we're going to discuss these is by the order that they occur rather naturally in our lives. Okay. That all of us have had experiences with these. And again, the problem with these are when we get stuck, okay? When we have adopted one of these ways of being in the world and we're relying on this way to solely get whatever it is that we need. Now, in contrast to the parent ego states, okay? When, we think about the parent ego states and we realize, well, that's the cognitive or thinking part of us. That was material that was taught to us. The child ego states are where our emotions lie. Okay. This is the emotional piece of us. And as we have, I believe we've talked about this before, it's particularly where the painful parts of our emotions are. This is what we do to avoid managing our own painful emotional material. Okay. And again, there's a kind of a stepwise progression that we go through. We can get stuck in this progression anywhere, but there's a stepwise progression that we go through that starts first with the natural child. Okay. And so we have the natural child ego state. There we go. Thank you, Ricky. Okay. And when we first come into our existence as a human being, as that very, very small infant, as the newborn infant, okay, the newborn infant is the epitome of the natural child. And the reason that that is the case is because we really have no capacity whatsoever to ensure that we are independently okay. We can't do that. We have no abilities. We don't even have any control over just our somatic being, our physical body. Okay, none whatsoever. We have some kind of reflexive types of responses and instinctual things that we do, but that's about it. Okay, and those of you that know what it's like being around a newborn, that there are those occasions when newborns are generally okay and can hang out, but any level of impingement is overwhelming for a newborn. Okay, any level of discomfort it's overwhelming for a newborn, and as a newborn, we can't even really think about this. We are just existing. We are just feeling. We have those proprioceptive responses to our world. And if they're reasonably pleasurable or comfortable or assuring kinds of perceptions, then we're okay. But whenever an impingement occurs, whatever it might be, we have a little gas in our stomach or something, we're feeling some discomfort that way. We become frightened, by something, startled by something. We have a soiled diaper that is irritating our diaper rash, or whatever it might be. We're hungry, okay? Anything like that. Any level of impingement is overwhelming. So I do whatever it is that I have to do. The only thing that I can do is, instinctively begin crying, right? And ideally, I will cry, or and I will alert the external world however I can, and someone will show up. There's going to be somebody showing up and attending to whatever that impingement might be. And hopefully during that time as well, this is an exercise for me to get used to the idea that there is this element in my external environment that is going to begin the process of containing this piece that's overwhelming for me. Okay. Somebody's going to show up and change my diaper, and they're going to talk to me and interact with me and try and make me smile or laugh or whatever it might be. They're going to be extending some kind of care and connection to me as the impingement is being managed. Or are they going to be putting energy into trying to figure out what the impingement might be? And I know, with like colicky babies and those kinds of things, there's sometimes kids that have just like absolutely mysterious types of things that are going on with them. And kids who have just processing difficulties and things like that. And when they're very, very young infants, it's pretty tough for adults to figure that out, what that impingement might be, and try and figure out, well, how do we intervene and fix the thing? But at least I'm getting that sense that there is something in my external world who now is engaged and will be fixing it for me. So I'm trying to fix this for me, right? Now, ideally, through the process, I'm learning that ultimately I can begin identifying the impingements for what they are, and that there will be kinds of things that I can do of my own accord that will fix whatever the impingement might be. That would be the ideal scenario, right? But if I've decided, you know what, I kind of like the idea that it's everybody else's job to make sure that I'm okay, then I'm going to keep that natural child going far beyond the time when it would be appropriate for that to happen. And as it progresses and continues, then it gets to a point in my life where it's just all about feeding the beast. That's pretty much whatever it is. Any kind of an impulse or any kind of an immediate demand that I might have, whether it be for any kind of sensationalistic sensation, sexual, food, whatever it might be, it has to be rectified immediately. Okay. And it's always going to be somebody else's job to do that. And I do not care how it gets fulfilled. Okay. And this is me going into the world realizing that everybody that exists in the world is just an object there for my own personal gratification. So, as the natural child, I'm still at that place where any kind of impingement, okay, any kind of responsibility, any kind of painful task, difficult task, boring task, whatever it might be, is still overwhelming to me. And I have every expectation that ultimately somebody else is going to show up and fix it for me. Okay. That I never have to do it. Somebody else is going to do that. So, if you're leaping ahead here just a little bit, you might recognize, you know what? I can see where the natural child and the nurturing parent would easily get locked into this weird loop that we can never get out of, because the natural child is always going to be in that place where I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. It's too hard, it's too hard. No, it's boring. I still need this, I need this, on and on and on. Where the nurturing parent would be, well, no, I'm fixing it. I'm trying to fix it. I'm trying to fix it. I'm trying to fix it. It's never good enough. I'm trying to fix it. It's never good enough. On and on and on and on and on we go. Okay. And it becomes incredibly frustrating, and we can take it to all kinds of weird places in an attempt to ensure that each of us is being validated by the others. That as a natural child, I'm being seen as this person that just is incapable of life, and it's your job to make sure that I don't have to deal with the actual consequences of that. All right, we probably ought to end it here today. You're going to have to remind me. I guess I'll give that assignment to you, Ricky, to remind me where we left off with all of this. Okay. And we'll pick it up at the next time that we meet. Was there any I don't know, was there any immediate questions or something? Or if I'll tell you what, since we're going to be doing the ego states part 2 next week, if there was some questions about anything that I was talking about today, send them to Ricky, and I'll make sure that I address those at the beginning of the next time that we meet. Okay. All right, very good. Well, I had probably better sign off for today. Hopefully everyone's doing well. and again, if there's a part of this too that you would want to talk to me about this privately for a while, get with Ricky. We'll make arrangements that you can get on my schedule and we can chat too as well. Right. Take care of yourselves. We'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks.
Bye, guys. Thank you. Thank you for being part of the seminar today. The next one is going to be on the 19th, and it's again at 1 p.m. And I know a couple of you have said that 1 isn't the best time for you. Right now, this is the only time that works for our, for Doc Dan and for everyone else's schedule. So we'll try to figure something else out in the meantime. But right now, we're just going to stick with the 1 p.m. spot. One last thing. If you want to see a full calendar of the upcoming seminars, we've got a couple of other therapists going to come on and talk and introduce some different topics. If you want to see when those are going to happen, those are on our website at starguideswilderness.net. And under the parent tab, if you click on parent trainings and workshops, you'll see all the information about the upcoming workshops and the upcoming trainings and who's presenting them and what are the topics. If you have any other questions, feel free to email me or call me. I'm available 24/7. So thanks again, guys, and I hope you have a really great day.